Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Lakeland Rotary Club. My name is Joel Ivy, and I'm so glad you could all join us. Leading us in our invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, and to recite the four-way test is going to be Max Headroom, aka Ron Denny. Ron is a realtor with Denny Realty Group. He is an 18-year Rotarian and a past president. So, Ron, give it your best shot, please.
Thank you, President Joel. Let's pray. Our Father, we just thank you for this day. We just thank you for your many blessings that you bestow upon each and every one of us. We pray for healing, not only with polio, but healing across the world and healing with our nation as we're in some turbulent times. Pray that you just be with our own Scott Franklin now as he goes up to Washington, D.C. We just pray our hedge of protection around him. And bless this meeting today. We pray for all the veterans and active duty. Just thank you for their service, and especially for the families who have lost ones. We just thank you and pray a special blessing upon them today. Bless this meeting now in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test. Thing will look good.
Ron, we kind of lost you there, but I think we managed to get through it.
Do we not hear it?
Well, good enough. Good enough. We were all able to recite and keep up with you, so thank you very much, sir. We appreciate your service. Going to move on to the introduction of guests and visiting Rotarians. Trey, are you with us?
I am with you.
All right.
So, I saw that Doug McCall is on the line, visiting Rotarian. Do we have any other visiting Rotarians today?
We do. This is Melody. I'd like to introduce Albert Cummings. He is the vice principal at Blake Academy and also a fellow classmate of Leadership Lakeland, best class ever, 38.
And welcome, Albert. Do we have any other guests or visiting Rotarians today?
Trey, Don Selvage, it's my pleasure to again introduce who I think are still guests. They are very close to being members. One's Carol Hardesty and John Loud. So welcome to both Carol and John.
Thank you, Don, and welcome, Carol and John. Any other guests or visiting Rotarians today? Okay.
All right.
Welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Trey. In addition to his part-time job, he's our board secretary. So, Trey, thank you so much. We'll move on to Happy Dollars. If anybody has a Happy Dollar announcement you would like to make, please unmute yourself and speak up.
Trey, Don Selvage, I know everybody knows this, but today is the Marine Corps' 245th birthday. So I'm happy to donate to Happy Dollars on behalf of the Marine Corps' annual birthday.
All right. Thank you, Don. It's a special day for sure. Do we have any other Happy Dollars?
I have one, President Joel.
Okay.
I was very happy to attend the Athena Awards that were put on by the Lakeland Chamber of Commerce last Thursday, and especially happy when our club member Brenda Ramirez was honored as the recipient of the Young Leaders Award for this year. And she just gave an outstanding acceptance speech and was very admirable, made me very proud to be a fellow Rotarian and friend of hers. So congratulations to Brenda.
Thank you, Amanda. Congratulations to Brenda. That was awesome. Any other Happy Dollars?
President Brunson here. I have one.
Okay.
I was able to collect $1,000 for an AED from Rotarian who's passed away, Roy Ty, his wife, Ernestine Ty. So Trey has the check and it'll be part of our contribution.
That's fantastic. So those AEDs, as I recall, are a little over $700 just for the AEDs themselves. So that is quite a generous donation. So thank you, Kim. And we are, by the way, we are looking to purchase about 25 more AEDs on behalf of the police department later on this year. So that's what the rest of our fundraising will be for the remainder of the year. So thank you for that. Any other happy dollars? Okay, hearing none, we got about 1,000 announcements to make. Starting with the Visti meal boxes. I'm wondering, Tyler, are you with us today?
I am, yes, sir. So, as in prior years, Rotary has committed to delivering Visti boxes to the elderly in our community this December. We've committed to delivering 125 boxes, which is a little bit up from where we were last year. So we need everyone to participate, and thanks to everybody who's already signed up. There are multiple ways to sign up. You can either go to Club Runner. Amanda created a sign up section on there, and feel free, if you would like to deliver multiple boxes, when you get to Club Runner, sign up for multiple spots for however many boxes you wish to deliver, or you can send me an email, which is listed here, and I'll also send it out in the chat here in a second. So those are the two different ways to sign up. It's a contactless delivery and pickup. We're going to have the pickup set up December 1st, which is a Tuesday. So right after Rotary, from about 1 to 5 p.m., I'm going to be set up, have a table with all the boxes ready to be picked up behind the United Methodist Church, where, eons ago, it feels like now, where we used to meet in person, a familiar place. So everybody, if you sign up, I'll be in touch with you about the pickup times and delivery instructions. But go ahead and pencil in December 1st that afternoon to pick up the boxes from First United Methodist Church in the back parking lot. And you can deliver those boxes anytime in December. So thanks again to everybody who is signed up. And if you would like to volunteer, please let me know.
Good deal, Tyler. Thank you. I think we can all imagine that in spite of the virus and everything else going on, the need of our elderly has not diminished at all. As a matter of fact, it's only increasing. So, Tyler, thank you very much for agreeing to take this on. Moving on to spring obsession. Dr. Mel, you want to take this one?
Yes, sir. We're continue to make great progress with our awesome committee members on our spring obsession. We did, though, make the big ask and sent all of our sponsor letters out last week. Matt, of course, heading that up. So please be on the lookout for those that were gracious enough last year to sponsor the event. We need probably even more this year. And so if you are inspired and would like a donor letter, we can get that to you, but please be on the lookout, and we appreciate your support as always. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Melody Ryder. We normally would be hitting people in person, but because of COVID, we're electing to try to get our sponsorships this way. So if everybody's able to open up their pocketbooks again, we certainly would appreciate it, because all the proceeds from this event is also going for the AEDs. So thank you, Dr. Mel. Thank you, Matt, too, for taking this on. So do you have the Santa's Helpers thing, Amanda, the announcement for that? Okay. I was given a plea from the city's Parks and Rec Department. Every year they man the phones and they call children around the town and let them get an upbeat message from Santa Claus. And there's Santa's Helpers roles in this as well. They're looking for 10 to 15 more people. This would be Tuesday, December 8th from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So we would be asking people to make calls to kids. You would be given more or less a script of the things that the children are asking for and things that we can say. So if you've got it in your heart to try to want to participate in something like this, there's a contact information. You can reach out to me if you need to. The recreation@lakelandgov.net is the email you see at the bottom, or just email me and I can pass it along. This is always a big deal for the kids around town, and everybody that does it has a really good time doing it. Their volunteer list, though, has diminished to almost nothing. So they're reaching out to the different Rotary clubs to see what help they can get. All right, thank you all. Our own Jim Russell, against my better judgment, wanted to make an announcement on Salvation Army bell ringing. Jim Russell, you're on mute.
There we go. There we go. Thank you, Joel. First, I do want to congratulate Scott Franklin for winning his election. Also want to wish happy birthday for Don Selvage and the rest of our Marines. And I want to say thank you to Don and Gary Clark for the fine program they put on Saturday morning for the veterans. It's always fun to listen to Gary tell it how it really is. Do want to mention Salvation Army. We're actually allowed to ring this year at our Lake Marion Publix, and our dates will be December 14th through Christmas Eve. And thanks to Chuck McDaniel, he has already set up the sign-up platform. Just go to the Club Runner website and click on events, and then you can see it'll take you to sign up for Salvation Army, and you can enter your name into a spot just like we did last year. This year it will be just the traditional 2 people for a 2-hour shift. It won't be overlapping. So we've got those about 10 days to work with. And thank you very much.
All right, Jim, thank you for continuing to perform in this role. We really appreciate you for that. Thank you. Okay, we are having a board meeting tonight. We've been trying, like the Dickens, to have a place that we can meet in person. I don't think that we wound up with anything, so we are looking at being on Zoom again. If for any reason you've lost your mind and you'd like to participate in the board meeting tonight, then you're certainly welcome to dial in, as they say, and join us. So starting at 5:15, if you'd like a link, just get a hold of Beth, please. All right. With all that, it's time to get into our program. The program is going to be introduced today by our own Gary Clark, who I agree with Jim Russell, did a fantastic job at the Veterans event on Saturday. The unveiling of that monument was quite a deal. They both did a very fantastic job. Just makes you proud to be a Rotarian. Gary works for CPS Investment Advisors. He's a 25-year Rotarian, and thankfully, Gary remains very active in veteran affairs. So, Gary, can you take over the introduction, please?
I'll make my best attempt, President Joel. Thank you, and thank you to everybody for the support on Saturday. It's a team effort, and we had lots of support from the city, from the Rotary clubs across the city, and thanks too for the donations that were made to help us fund the Desert Storm Monument. As you know, this is the 30th anniversary of Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and there's a number of folks in our Rotary Club who were participants in that exercise 30 years ago, and we can remember what it was like. A little different than today, but anyway, we're pleased that the monument came out and that the ceremony went well, and we got to recognize some really great folks that are the legacy of veterans. Randy Edwards, who passed away at 103, World War II, a veteran. We also got to recognize Hope Kirkendall, age 100, a nurse during World War II in Europe, 3 battle stars, incredible young lady at 100. And then, of course, Andy Bosco, who's only 99. He was the youngster of the group. So we had a good time doing that. Against my better judgment, too, Joel, I'll wish happy birthday to my Marine Corps acquaintances. I won't call them friends, I'll call them acquaintances. That's just an Air Force thing, okay? But it is a great day for the Marines, and for 245 years, they've been bragging. The Air Force is a little bit younger, as you know, but we'll get there at some point. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Don to introduce our speaker here today and another Marine. So Don, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Gary. We are privileged today to have another Marine join us. We sometimes forget that 19 years ago, this country was attacked and 9/11. And we have been at war since then. It's called the Long War. And when you think about where have the years gone, that we as a country have been officially at war in combat operations for almost 20 years. So Gary and I discussed bringing in somebody, a veteran who could talk to us about these past 20 or 30 years because he's experienced it. I'm pleased to introduce Colonel Paul Patrick. His call sign, he's an aviator, is Tiny. In the Marine Corps, most of our pilots are little mean guys, but Tiny doesn't fit that mold. He's more like a linebacker. And so I'd like to welcome Colonel Patrick. He's from Lakeland, a Lakeland boy. He attended Lakeland Senior High School, Polk Community College, and then the University of South Florida. His career is interesting. While a young man, he enlisted in the Marine Corps as a reservist and joined the amphibious assault vehicle unit in Tampa. And lo and behold, a few years later, he found himself as a young Marine riding in an Amtrak going north through Saudi Arabia into Kuwait during Desert Storm. He came back and got his degree at University of South Florida and then commissioned and decided to become a pilot. And he's flown the KC-130 Hercules since being designated a naval aviator in 1994. He's flown all over the world with duty flying and staff officer assignments at the Marine Air Wing level. He's also served on the Joint Staff at the Pentagon and has deployed in support of Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. He commanded Marine Air Refueling Squadron 152 in Okinawa, Japan, and he's retired and came back to Lakeland after 29 years of service in July of 2017. Like most pilots, he won't leave the cockpit. He's been a KC-130J instructor pilot, supporting the Kuwait Air Force for 3 years, and now he's a first officer flying the Boeing 767s for Omni Air International. Tim has attended the Amphibious Warfare School, Marine Corps Command and Staff, and the National War College. He has flown over 5,000 hours of flight time on the KC-130 Hercules. His personal decorations include the Legion of Merit, Bronze Star, Defense Service Medal, and the Combat Action Ribbon, among other decorations. He's back here with Laura, and they've been happily married since 1991. They have 2 adult children, Austin and Julia. So please join me in welcoming Tiny Patrick, U.S. Marine Corps retired.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Don. Gary, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I know what an esteemed crowd that I'm talking to today. And Don asked me to give you my veteran's perspective on the global war on terror, and he's right. I kind of backed into the Marine Corps. I enlisted after I was turned down for the officer commissioning program over in Orlando. And boy, did that appear to have a plan for me. And you know what? It worked. So what I've got is a slide presentation for you. It's only about 6 or 7 slides. A couple of them will go pretty quick. I've got one about me, some other things that were formative in my thinking on some of the main points about the global war on terror, which I've had a chance to support directly and indirectly during my entire career. So, and then I'm going to change gears just a little bit because Veterans Day is coming up, tomorrow. And during Veterans Day, I don't want to cross streams with Memorial Day, but we spend a lot of time thinking about those we served with. And I've got a lot of pictures here that I'm going to share with you, okay? And then at the end, if there's time for questions, Matt's going to help me control the clock and keep me on track here. So again, next slide, please. And again, happy birthday to the Marine Corps, 245. If my wife and I were still in, I think this year would have wrapped up our 30th year. We've been at the gala Marine Corps Ball in Washington, D.C., which is quite an event for those of you that have ever had a chance to attend. Then, of course, a little bit more about me. 33803 born and raised, Bob and Jean Patrick. And again, you got my educational pedigree. But in 1988, the Marine Corps snagged me. And And I can directly attribute whatever successes that I've been told I've earned and gained with, you know what, Parris Island, South Carolina will certainly help you find laser focus. Graduated in 91, and during that time I was serving with the 4th AAV Battalion over in Tampa. And then for the first time in 50 years, since the Marine Corps Reserve had mobilized, I think it had been since Korea, Corporal Patrick had been in it, and I kissed my commission goodbye and mobilized and deployed, went to combat for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Got back from that, finished college, and then was commissioned as second lieutenant. And Laura and I promptly got married, and then off to the races. And again, Austin and Julia, I've got 2 wonderful children. They're both here in Lakeland. My son works for Lockheed Martin right now on their finance side, and my daughter's still trying to find her way, just having recently graduated. A little bit about my career. I got 2 tours on the East Coast at Cherry Point, North Carolina. That's where I was learning to fly the KC-130J, and then my first operational tours as well. I got 2 tours on Okinawa, Japan, and those were absolutely wonderful times in our life. The kids were real little the first tour. The second tour was my command tour that Don had mentioned. Then off to, I had a tour as a tactics instructor in Arizona at Marine Aviation Weapons and Tactics Squadron 1, and I led the KC-130 division there. And then after Squadron Command, no good deed went unpunished, and I was sucked into the Pentagon after spending a wonderful year at the National War College class of 2011, which began my joint qualification and get my joint time. So eventually I'd be eligible for promotion to general officer ranks had I chosen that route. I don't know if I'd ever made it or not. I was competitive, but the Marine Corps and I decided to part ways in 2017 after Air Group Command, which is the Texas bullet there. I was the commanding officer of Marine Aircraft Group 41 in Dallas, Fort Worth, or NAS Carswell, and I was lucky to have that tour. And so, like you said, I flew KC-130s most of that time. There's my educational pedigree. I've got a few other MOSs along with that, and then had a chance to go over to Kuwait. I spent a year out there as a contractor with their Air Force flying KC-130Js, which is the aircraft in the picture there. I was leading a 4-ship out to Iwo Jima for a tanking evolution with some F-18s out of Iwakuni. And then came home from that and decided I wanted to keep trying to fly if I could. And I ended up with On the Air International flying the 767, and that's a wonderful airplane, and I'm enjoying it very much. And then, of course, back to the 33803 area code where Gary and Don and also John Wendell, I got to throw a shout out to him. They kind of brought me into the Rotary world, and here we are today. I got a couple of pictures up here for you. So just back, there's me as a Lance Corporal. Yeah, and that was over off of Shady Lane while I was drilling. Me as a Colonel, that was my command photo, and of course my wonderful family up there, Bob and Jean Patrick, and my brothers Jim, John, and Rob. And that was during my promotion to Colonel at the Pentagon. And that's the prettiest airplane in the world right there. If anybody's flown in the back of a C-130, you probably don't think like it from that perspective, but we did wonderful things with that aircraft, and I can talk about that a little bit later on if we have time. Next slide. So my global war on terrorism experience. So again, I'll just start with all of it. So Desert Shield and Desert Storm, we kind of beat that up, and then in 2002, while I was a tactics instructor, I augmented one of our C-130 squadrons that had a detachment in Jacobabad, Pakistan. And we were, that was OEF-1 at the time. I mean, really the Wild West. We were just going in there, getting that Operation Enduring Freedom set up. So we were flying all over Afghanistan and Pakistan. It was really, really an interesting time. And then again, not too long later, we shifted fires, which I have some thoughts on this I'm going to share later, to Iraqi freedom. And then I ended up augmenting again from the same schoolhouse as a staff officer with 3rd Marine Aircraft Wing, and I also did some flying up into Iraq when we ousted Saddam. And then fast forward again to 2005, 2006 timeframe. I'm a major now, and deployed. I led a KC-130 detachment, 6 KC-130Js, brand new at the time, 120 so Marines to Al Asad Air Base, Iraq. I'm going to mention that again here in a second. And then my squadron detachment. I was sending detachments back into Afghanistan from Okinawa when I was a commanding officer 2008 to 2010. And, when I looked at that and I was preparing for this, it still strikes me to this day. And behind there's a map. And if you could kind of see those little subdued pins I was like, holy cow, and what I felt was just like I put the bullet. I left as a corporal from Desert Storm, and I kind of picked up, went right straight to Kuwait as a major. And we just kept moving north into Iraq. And then, of course, I go completely other side of the world to Okinawa, and I'm working up Marines, and I'm sending them back to Afghanistan. So it just, the way Don said a second ago, 19 years at this thing, and I just thought it would never end. And then I started promoting through the ranks, becoming a senior leader. And my time in the Pentagon shaped a lot of my thinking. I'll hit some of that here in a second. But I started thinking about my son and my daughter, because there was some talk, about them joining the military in some shape, fashion. I was like, man, are we ever going to end this thing? Is this going to be their fight as well? And I know I'm not the only one that has had that thought. But anyway, I left as a corporal, came back as a lieutenant colonel, and then, of course, now I was a senior officer preparing my young Marines and sailors to go to war. Next slide. Kind of busy here, and this is where I want to spend most of my time. And with Veterans Day upon us, I wanted you to know, and I try to share this every chance I get. Americans should be very, very proud, and I know that's not lost on this crew here. But I also sometimes think, and when I was in the Pentagon, we used to talk about the civilian-military divide. There's like a disconnect because there's such a small percentage of us that pick up the torch and kind of run to the sound of the guns and join the military in any capacity. And that service above self ethos is there. And I want to share a few anecdotes with you. And these are from my time at Group Command, when I'm really now sitting in that corner office thinking about what am I doing enough to make sure the Marines that I've been entrusted the stewardship over and leading. And MAC 41 was over 3,000 Marines strong. And I was in their shoes. If you look at that picture right in the middle where I'm sitting there with a plate full of chow, that's a wing support squadron. And these Marines are responsible for running heavy equipment, building airfields, utilities, chow halls, all that kind of stuff. And I was in their shoes. I was one of those Marines, and I was thanking God that I had been so well trained back in the days when I was sent down, mobilized and sent down range. I was ready to go. I was ready to go fight whatever fight the Marine Corps needed, our country needed us to fight. Well, the Marines are the same way. The Marines and sailors that I was fortunate enough to lead. That first bullet, sir, I just turned 18. Man, this was humbling to me. I met this kid out behind the barracks in Fort Worth, Texas, and I decided to do a pig roasting for him. And a really young-looking kid. And I say, how old are you? He goes, well, sir, I just turned 18. I said, where are you from? And I forget the country, but he was first-generation immigrant from South America somewhere. And I was like, okay, well, and I kind of started putting two and two together. Not too long ago, this kid had just become a citizen. And then I looked at him and I said, you just turned 18. He goes, yeah, your mom had to sign up for you to join, right? He goes, yes, sir. And I said, well, why on earth would you join the Marine Corps? You got you got this opportunity. Because I just want to be a part of the best. Okay, the reason I tell you that story is because there's tens of thousands of stories just like that. So what I'm trying to convey to you is that service above self ethos is just incredible. And that humbled me because I realized how important the decisions I made in resourcing, training, and leading the squadrons that were under my charge were to be ready to go to combat. And that's what my mission was. It was combat readiness. That's what I was trying to give back. That's what you expect of your Marines, to be ready to go. Everywhere I went, we were spread out over 6 states, multiple detachments here and there. We flew 7 different Type Model Series aircraft. When do we get to go? I mean, this is back in the 2015 to 17 time frame, and all these Marines wanted to do, everybody you see in those pictures there, that every time I had a chance to address my Marines is, boss, when is it our time? We are ready to go. Active duty and reserve, it didn't matter. They wanted their chance to go and fight. And that was even more humbling because I wanted to make sure that my Marines and sailors were ready to go when they were called. And then there's one more story backing up earlier when I was a major and we were working up to go to OIF, go to Al-Asad Air Base, and we were flying brand new KC-130Js, and we were headed to Yuma. My commanding general's on board, and I'm standing up talking to him, and I got a couple of co-pilots up front, and I pulled the general aside and said, hey, you see that guy over there, the captain? He goes, yeah, what's up, Tony? He says, He's a doctor. He's got a PhD in chemistry, and he left a six-figure job in Honolulu to serve after 9/11. And the general just looked at me, and his mouth dropped open. He goes, "Where do we find these people?" And that was Captain Joe Sweat. I'll never forget this young guy. And I was like, "Holy cow!" You know, I mean, the guy's got a brain that would humble just most anybody else. But he wanted to come fly C-130s for the Marine Corps, just serve. So anyway, be very proud of your veterans, and I know you are. But I like to tell these stories because I think it gives you something a little more to chew on, right? You know, as we go about our day-to-day lives. Leadership experiences. So I was lucky. I got a chance to lead at every level, all the way up through colonel. And so I started out with that detachment downrange in Al-Assad Air Base, Iraq, leading those 6 aircraft out there. And it was during the time, remember when they were doing the elections, and you saw the news footage of the Iraqis running around with the purple fingers where they had indicated that they had voted. It was a very, very busy time, very challenging for us running those 6 aircraft 24 hours a day. I want to say I probably threw 400 hours in that 6 months, which is, you know, by our standards was pretty high up tempo. And the Marines did splendid out there. Then of course, Squadron Command out in Okinawa. I'm still in an operational mindset there. Okay, so I'm trying to make a schedule, train my Marines, get them worked up, get them downrange, and make sure that we also were taking care of the family. And then post Squadron Command, now I end up in the Pentagon. National War College was a really good time. It kind of lets us decompress as senior leaders or growing senior leaders. And then right into the Joint Staff, where I ended up in J8 Forces Division, and we did force management and for the combatant commands. And then my last 2 years there, I ended up at Headquarters Marine Corps, the resourcing side of the Marine Corps, the money people. And I ran a small group of folks that did budget analysis. And that was a really interesting time watching how we were trying to support our senior leaders and how they were allocating resources to pay for this, that, or the other thing, and what that meant to the Marine Corps writ large. But when I left the Pentagon, I was fortunate enough to promote to colonel there, and then I slated for command. And I didn't get it up the first try, but I did on the second, which was really humbling as well, because there was only 14 air groups in the Marine Corps last count. And I drew the biggest, most diverse one because it was a reserve air group with so many different aircraft, and I was ready to rock and roll. It was going to be great. But man, when I went in there, and I the first thing I thought about was go back to look at the pictures, the top left and the bottom left there. Corporals Gary Brown, Bill Smock, Harriman right there in the middle, and there's Corporal Patrick in the back in the bottom left, and then on the top left is, and I just came across this the other day, that's in prep for the breach across the minefields into Kuwait. And we were sitting there watching those rocket launchers go downrange, and it was pretty interesting. You could feel the bombs going off, and now I've been given and entrusted leadership over this Marine Air Group. And the first thing I thought about was that bald-headed guy in the bottom left and what I did or didn't have. And that's what shaped my entire time in Air Group Command. But I was also concerned about having a more strategic mindset and where, you know, the forces that I was going to provide to the fight that I was responsible for training, are they going to be ready? And I used to speak with them ad nauseum every chance I got, that, you know, make sure that they're showing up for drill weekend, doing everything they need to do, because you're never 3 or 4 days away from a fight. And that proved to be the case almost, you know, rhetorically speaking, back in 1990 when I was mobilized. It didn't take long for them to get us out the door and into the country. So I was kind of growing from an operational mindset to a more strategic mindset. And then, you know, the gravity of what we're doing in the Marine Corps, you know, we're here to fight wars. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what you hire us to do. And every Marine I served with, that's what they wanted. They always wanted to get downrange. So now, kind of to the meat, and I know you want to hear probably some opinions on things. So this whole global war on terrorism thing. So it bothered me when, you know, it bothered me then, and it still bothers me now that we shifted from enduring freedom to Iraqi freedom. you could parse it. You know, there was some really good leadership out there at those times, but I thought we should have finished up what we were trying to do in enduring freedom. We could have kept Saddam in check. Now, that said, fast forward to my time in the Pentagon, and I'm helping shape force management decisions for the combatant commands during a period of sequestration, if you remember that, or if you know what that is, when we did across the board 10% cuts because we couldn't pass a budget, and the Department of Defense was running on continuing resolutions, and it was killing us. You fast forward to that, and I look, man, now they're having conversations about, you know, based off of what we used to do, defeat, as in Germany and Japan, and then I watched them literally pull away all the icons of the forces on the gym floor where the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and his service chiefs were going to have to figure out what they could and couldn't do. And we can't do for defeat anymore. We have to defeat and deny. Or anyway, so back in OEF to OIF, I'm trying to tie those together is because, you know, our own political infighting with the budget got us to sequestration, which really killed us. And I was in the Pentagon when we were trying to figure out how we were going to, you know, provide the combatant commands with the forces that they needed to prosecute their mission in their theaters of operation. And primarily, of course, with global war on terror, we're talking Central Command, European Command, and Africa Command. So my 2 cents, we should have stayed in OEF and finished that thing off, and then shifted fire to OIF if that would have been the right thing to do. And I think it was the right thing to do. But then we draw down and we pull out of OIF. So 2005, 2006 timeframe, right about the time that I'm there, young Major Patrick and his merry band of Marines, and we're flying these airplanes and we're doing great things. We had Al Bar all wrapped up. It was secure. The Army was doing great in their AOR. The Air Force is covering us from the air. Everything's going wonderful, right? I just don't get why we didn't pull down. And I would throw it out there. I still kind of think this today. We should have permanently based Americans out of Al-Assad Air Base, Iraq. I think we should have a base right there, right now, right in the middle of a whole mess. But we drew down. This would be a controversial opinion, but you know what? We could have pulled that off. We'd have been right there in the middle of that thing, this Al Qaeda thing, we pulled out. The vacuum created this caliphate, and now we've got more blood and treasure going out there. Down there. So you know what? Do it like we did it back in World War II. Base in Japan, base in Germany, stay postured. Why didn't we? And here's 2 cents again. And spent the whole year at National War College, and all we did was read strategy documents and trying to watch the resourcing of those strategies. I could never make any sense of it for 2 years. A year it's cool, 2 years on the Joint Staff, and then even tried while I was at Crusader. That 5 year I could never quite see where we were putting our money where our mouth was. I just didn't see it happen. So I even questioned what our international engagement strategy was. I'm not telling you that what we did was not the right thing to do. I stand by that. But it's fair for me as a colonel now, trying to have that strategic mindset to go, why are we doing this and what are we doing to support us? The military is just one instrument of national military power or national power, right? You've got all kinds of other things. And that's a shout out to our State Department folks because, they were always left hanging. They never had enough resources. The military, we all have all the shiny toys and all the ships and all the airplanes and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know, it just didn't. Well, still to me, to this day, I just didn't see where the connections were. A lot of my comments there are based on those days I spent at the Pentagon, working lower level issues, having watched the Marine Corps go through sequestration, watched all of the, for those of us that served, we knew who, Air Force Red Horse was, those guys, our CBs, Naval Mobile Construction Battalions, our Wing Support Squadron guys, the picture right in front of you right there. These folks are the enablers, but these are the ones we're getting rid of. I watched those forces get attrited because they were using those to pay bills for other things. But when it comes due, you got to open a port somewhere, and you got to lay fuel pipes, you got to lay utilities, you got to do all that kind of stuff that is required. We were selling all that off, and it just baffled me. I couldn't even if when I did get a chance to speak in some of these meetings, I was a lieutenant colonel at the time, and that's pretty, that's like a mouse and running with the elephants in the tall grass in some of those. It just didn't make any sense. And well, anyway, that did frustrate me greatly. When I left the Pentagon to go to Group Command, I had a great boss, 3-star general, went on to pick up a 4-star and became the assistant commandant of the Marine Corps. His name was Glenn Walters. And I was checking out with him, and I'm getting ready to head downrange. And he and I had a history flying together, And he goes, well, hey, you did great work. Appreciate you, and pat on my back. He was the one who promoted me. And he goes, well, how'd you like it? And I said, boss, I love working for you. But this has been one of the most professionally unsatisfying jobs I've ever had. And he looked at me, he goes, what? And I said, yeah. I said, I can't add up what I actually did for you. It's hard in that world, in those staffs to actually, squadron command, detachment command. I was like, I write a flight schedule, I go accomplish a mission, I go pass the gas, I go, to a receiver, I go drop a load somewhere. You can wrap your head around that. But when you go to a meeting and he tells you, don't bring me any bills, meaning don't give up money, because it was a fight inside the Pentagon to keep every penny that we had been given. So, but I told him that, and he kind of giggled, and he said, okay, I get you. And then, and that might be one of the reasons when they had that corner office in the aviation hallway for me to go to when I retired, or when I was giving up command at MAG 41, I was going to go work aviation budget issues. And I was like, I think I'm tapping out. I think it's time to move on. I can do it for you, but I won't like it. So it's time for me to get out of the way and let somebody else step up and do the thing. So, and once a Marine, always a Marine. Here's another controversial one, and we can talk about this one over a beer sometime. I agree. Once a Marine, always a Marine. If the Marine did it right. Once you cross that line and you don't uphold your charge as a Marine and you go wayward, you just because you graduated boot camp and you get a administrative or dishonorable discharge, you're not a Marine anymore. And yes, that's true. But I also like to remember, because there's folks out there that would take advantage of claiming to be a veteran and an honorably discharged veteran. So I would encourage you, just be careful about that. Next slide real quick, and I'm going to start wrapping it up here. Other thoughts. That's my father in the South Pacific on the right side. That's Bob Patrick. And that's young PFC Patrick up there. And I'll never want to meet that man again with Smokey the Bear hat on, because he ran me ragged. I know that for a fact. Look, there's a lot of veterans out there that are not taking advantage of the benefits that are out there. Example is my father. He didn't get tied into the VA until he was well into his late 70s with all kinds of sinus issues he had. So most of you probably know people, and that's not just about the old guys either, okay? Now we got another phenomenon. You got to get these youngins, these global war on terrorism veterans, and what they're going to do is they're going to suck it up, and they're going to come back and say, no, I'm going to let the old guys have that stuff. They're going to trying to keep it in, right? So if you know people like that, look, encourage them to visit the vet center, make a phone call, anything to get tied into the benefits that they rate. Okay. And many of you have sons, daughters, nephews, nieces, grandchildren, whatever. Throw that out there every once in a while, because it was even hard for me to get my own sergeants, majors, who were also retiring with me, to get them tied in the VA, because they were going to suck it up. That's just wrong. And then one last thought here before I just hit you real quick with some remembrances in the men and women I'm thinking of for Veterans Day. Rotary International, I think, can fill a gap that I sensed when I retired. I left Lakeland in 1991, okay? And I come back in 2017, I don't know a soul. And we moved back in 2018, when I got done in Kuwait. And I really thank God for Rotary and guys like Don and Gary and John Wendell and folks who have kind of brought me into the fold, because I never had a network. Okay? Yes, there's networking out there. You can go to the VA, but a lot of that networking is not geared towards, director level. I'm not saying I'm a C-suite kind of guy, even though I was a group commander. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is director level. There's no Rosetta Stone to take a guy like I was. Had I not decided, and I decided not to go to work for the Raytheons, the the Lockheeds, the Bell Boeings. You know, if I was well networked in the defense industry, I could have gone back to DC, got out as a colonel, and got a job with one of those, but I didn't want to do that. Rotary fits that bill. So, you know, I'm going to do some more thinking on this, and you bring these veterans that are coming out like me, you know, retired 05s, 06s, even maybe 1-stars, and they, you know, you're still kind of trying to figure out who's who in the zoo, where they're from, or wherever they're going to. I think Rotary can fit that niche because you're instantly plugged into a great network with people that are all very like-minded, right? Next slide real quick, and I'll wrap it up. You know what? I don't want to leave it on a down note, and I won't, because I got a pretty good picture here with a buddy of mine, but these are the men and women I think of. The woman is Sergeant Winters up there, and that memorial is on a mountaintop near a place called Shamsi, Pakistan. I was flying that night when that crew flew into that mountain. They didn't see it, and it was pretty hazardous flying conditions, and we lost all those Marines. Matthew Freeman up there at the top left, he was one of my captains that was in my squadron, and he volunteered to go do a ground tour, and he was killed in Afghanistan engaging a pretty large insurgent force as an air officer. The Raider 04 crew, again, that's the memorial there. Lieutenant Colonel Ribel, the man you see there in the flight suit standing in front of the Harrier, had just come back from a flight at Forward Operating Base Bastion in Afghanistan. Was just wrapping up some business when they started hearing the snap, crackle, and pop of small arms fire, and the FOB Bastion come under attack. He grabbed the nearest Marine, puts on his stuff, and runs straight into the fight. Unfortunately, he lost his life in that gunfight, and he'd just come back from a flight. And, you know, it's just as dangerous in training as it is in combat. Yankee 7-2, that one happened the week I was retiring. That's the crew up there. The crew are the Marines in Charlie's, and then the special operators that were in the back are the Marines in Alphas. Propeller on the number 2 prop came apart in that airplane, and they perished in that mishap in Missouri. And then not too long ago, a sumo aircraft, that was my squadron. We lost that crew during a refueling training operation right off of Iwakuni. That was my old squadron. Kevin Herman on the left there, he was with us out there in Iraq. And then Brody right there, the other officer, he was the one who worked me back up when I was going to group command, getting me retrained up in the KC-130J. Unfortunately, I didn't know the rest of the crew. I think about these young men and women often, and I just thought I'd throw that out there for you, give you something to chew on if you don't know anybody. But you know, it's freedom's not free. And we know full well, and veterans very well can appreciate that we know what we do is very dangerous, and it's not just when they're shooting at you that you're in harm's way. It's also when you're training. Next slide, please. That's right after the breach in Kuwait. That's my buddy Corporal Al Ferreira. he was a punk back then. You see him with us. Well, anyway, and we're just across the breach. I'm holding the surrender flag. Those poor Iraqis have been so beat up, and there we are all these years later, about a year ago, at a reunion over in Tampa. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, I spend my Veterans Day. I'm starting to get texts from Marines that I served with already while I was driving over here. Next slide. And where did the time go? You know, there's my family. That was the day I retired, and you know, I thank God for every minute that I served. I thank God for every Marine and sailor I served with. And you should be very proud of your veterans. And I know you are. I know that's not lost on this crowd, but it's highly appropriate that, you know, America does what it does for its veterans, because you've got the soul, that ethos is intact, service above self, but it's out there right now and they're ready to go. I just really, really want to make sure we expend those resources and that commitment to our nation wisely. Next slide. There's my squadron, Okinawa, Japan, old planes to the new, about 400 hard chargers. And with that, I know we're running short of time, and I'd like to turn the floor back over if anybody has any questions or anything. Nothing's off the table.
Okay, thanks, Tiny. You know, years ago, it's sort of in remembrance of Willie Wolfson, who said on Veterans Day we ought to have a roll call of the veterans in in our Rotary Club. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to remember a couple that we've lost in the last year, some during this pandemic period. Ken Stapleton passed away. I don't think any of us knew that until his wife contacted me and said Ken had passed away. John Larson, Tom McLaughlin, and there may be others that I've missed in all this, but let's remember them on this Veterans Day as well. Let me just run the roll of the veterans in our club. Dick Mason, John Cannon, Brock Self, Ralph Allen, Dave Moss, Joe McDonough, Bill Chase, Dean Hart, Jim Esmond, Ken Ferris, me, Greg Robinson, Rico Rich, Dorsey Hightower, Don Selvage, Bob Eckenruth, C.J. Marcello, Joel Ruthven, Mitch Jones, Ron Denny, Michael Huff, Jenny Harris, Chuck McDonald, Scott Franklin, Scott Laron, Keith DeLoach, Chris Russo, Cal Arter, Dan Gargas, James Ring, Chuck Irvin. If I missed anybody, it's because you didn't tell me. Happy Veterans Day to all those veterans in our club. I'll turn it back to you, President. Joel.
All right. Thank you, Colonel Patrick. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate this program. This is one of the best that we've had in a good long time. So thank you so much. Amanda, do we have any questions?
There are no questions in the chat box right now.
It's really kind of hard to follow up a presentation like that with questions. So it very much was an outstanding program. Tim, thank you so much for that. I've got this highly coveted Lakeland Rotary book that you can use, I hope, to log a lot of your events and things that are going on in your life and continue these stories and the support that you're giving to the veterans as well. So what a great program. On behalf of all this club, we certainly appreciate your service and sharing your experiences with us today. So thank you. Let's move on, Trey, to thanking our guests and visiting Rotarians, please.
I'd like to thank our guests, John Lout, Carol Hornsby, Barbara Turner, and Albert Cummings, and visiting Rotarian Doug McCall. Thank you all for coming and hope you come back.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Our weekly quote: "No man is entitled to the blessings of freedom unless he be vigilant in its preservation." General Douglas MacArthur. Next week's program will be our new member profiles. So absent any protest to the contrary, we will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great week.